The notification lit up my phone screen just as I was blowing out the candles on my birthday cake. Laughter filled the restaurant, my friends raising their glasses to toast another year of my life. But the moment I saw his name pop up, the world around me blurred. My name is Chrissy, and at 39, I have received the most ruthless message in history. Hey, Chrissy, I just wanted to be upfront with you. I found someone better. Someone younger, hotter, and honestly, an upgrade. I transferred our money into my personal account. Felt fair since I was the one making most of it anyway. No hard feelings. Enjoy your birthday. A breath caught in my throat. The words glowed on my screen like a neon sign spelling out, Betrayal. I didn't react. Not outwardly. No shaking hands. No sudden gasp. No tears welling in my eyes. If anyone at the table noticed anything, it was probably just the way I suddenly sat a little straighter, the way my smile became sharper instead of softer. Congrats, I typed back. One word. No anger, no desperation, just a simple, quiet response. Because what Nathan didn't realize, what he never once considered in his inflated sense of superiority, was that I had been paying attention for months. Nathan had always been arrogant. It was part of his charm at first. The confidence, the smooth talk, the way he could make anything sound like it was his idea, even when it wasn't. But then, things started changing. The sudden, late nights at work, even though his company didn't require overtime. The way his phone was always face down. The way he'd roll his eyes when I mentioned future plans. As if I was naive for even thinking we had a future. And the money. At first, it was little things. His Venmo payments suddenly becoming delayed. A sudden concern over shared expenses when he used to cover dinner without hesitation. Then the big red flag. Last month, he suggested we move our shared savings to an account under his name. It's just easier that way, he had said with that dismissive wave of his hand. I'm better with money, babe. I'll make sure we're set. I smiled, nodded, even let him believe he had convinced me. That same afternoon, I walked into my bank and opened a new account. I didn't drain our joint savings, not completely. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I withdrew just enough over time that he wouldn't notice. I moved my portion into the new account, leaving behind just enough to keep up appearances. And now, on my birthday, I knew exactly what had happened. Nathan thought he had won. He thought he had taken everything and left me with nothing. Except, he was about to learn the hard way just how wrong he was. An hour after his text, my phone buzzed again. This time from a mutual friend. Chrissy, I don't know how to say this, but Nathan just hard-launched his new girlfriend on Instagram. He literally posted, "The glow-up is real. Out with the old. In with the new." I am fuming for you. I clicked the link. Sure enough, there he was, posing in a luxury hotel suite, arm wrapped around a woman who couldn't have been older than 22. Long legs, perfect hair, the kind of effortless beauty that made people do double takes. Melissa. The same Melissa he had told me was just a friend. The same Melissa he had sworn was annoying and immature. And yet, there she was, wrapped around him like a prize he had just won. The comments were ruthless. Okay, King. Big upgrade. Damn, my guy upgraded from economy to first class. R.I.P. to the ex. She must be crying. Oh, how wrong they were. I wasn't crying. I was waiting. Nathan believed he had outsmarted me. He assumed I would do what every woman in his past had done. Break down, beg for closure, spiral into heartbreak. But the thing about arrogant men is that they always underestimate the women they betray. He had forgotten whose name was on the lease of our apartment. He had forgotten whose credit card he had been using for the last 6 months. He had forgotten that I was the one who had built our savings, while he had only ever contributed in words, not numbers. I stared at my phone, at the texts, at the photos, at the comments that were meant to humiliate me. And I smiled. Nathan had made the first move, but I was about to make the last one. Nathan believed he had already won. He thought he had taken the money, the power, and the upper hand. But what he had really done was set himself up for a fall so spectacular even he wouldn't see it coming. The first domino would tip over in 3, 2, 1. The first thing I did when I got home? I changed the locks. Nathan had never bothered putting his name on the lease. It had always been my apartment, my responsibility, my name on every official document. "Babe, why do all that paperwork? You're way better at that stuff than I am," he had said when we moved in. And now, that laziness would cost him. The landlord had no problem when I called to have the locks changed. "You're the only one on the lease, Chrissy. You can do whatever you want." By midnight, Nathan no longer had a home to come back to. At 1 a.m., I got the first sign that reality was beginning to sink in. A single text from Nathan. "Hey, super weird, but I think my key isn't working. Can you let me in?" I let the message sit. Read, but unanswered. 15 minutes later, another one. Chrissy? What's going on? I need to grab some of my stuff." I still said nothing. Because Nathan's stuff? The suits, the watches, the sneakers he spent a fortune on but never took care of? Everything he had left behind was already packed in trash bags and sitting in the hallway outside. When he tried to enter his old life, he would find himself standing outside a locked door, staring at his belongings like a stranger on the curb. But this was just the beginning. At 8 a.m. the next morning, I made a call to our bank. "Hi, I need to report fraudulent activity on my joint account." The customer service rep's voice was polite but firm. "What kind of fraudulent activity, ma'am?" I took a deep breath, ready to say the words that would flip Nathan's world upside down. Money was withdrawn without my permission, and I have text message proof that my ex took the funds maliciously. Pause. "Then, would you be able to forward those messages to our fraud department?" "Of course, happy to." I sent the proof within minutes. By 9:30 a.m., Nathan's personal bank account, the one he so proudly transferred all our money into, was frozen pending an investigation. The next text from Nathan came right on schedule. "Chrissy, WTF did you do? My bank account is locked. I can't access anything." I sipped my morning coffee before replying. "Huh? Weird. Maybe you should call your bank." He called. And what a call that must have been. I imagined the moment the representative explained that his account was frozen due to a fraud complaint. That he wouldn't have access to a single cent until the matter was resolved. That the funds he had stolen weren't as safely tucked away as he had thought. I imagined the slow realization washing over him. That his grand upgrade wasn't going as planned. That Melissa's luxury vacation dreams had just crashed and burned. And that I was not the fool he had thought I was. Nathan had booked a rental car for his trip with Melissa, a flashy convertible, because of course he did. I knew this because I had seen the confirmation email pop up on our shared iPad weeks ago. And guess what credit card he had used? Mine. He had stupidly left the card details saved in the system, thinking I wouldn't notice. So at 10 a.m., I made my second phone call of the day. "Hi, I need to report an unauthorized transaction on my credit card." By noon, the rental car was canceled. And just like that, Nathan and Melissa had no ride to their supposed better life. At exactly 12:17 p.m., my phone rang. Nathan. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call. Then another. By the fifth attempt, I finally picked up. "Chrissy, you need to fix this. My bank is frozen. My rental is canceled. My stuff is in trash bags outside the apartment. You've made your point, okay?" I smiled, twirling my coffee spoon between my fingers. "Oh, Nathan, I haven't even started." Nathan was unraveling. I could hear it in his voice, see it in his texts, feel it in his desperation. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Because what's the point of revenge if the person who betrayed you doesn't fully understand the depth of their mistake? I was going to make sure Nathan felt every bit of the consequences he had brought upon himself. And the best part? He still had no idea just how deep the trap had been set. Nathan's next brilliant move had been booking a high-end hotel suite for himself and Melissa. 5-star luxury, ocean views, private balcony, a fantasy trip meant to be the cherry on top of his upgrade to a better life. Too bad he didn't pay attention to the fine print, because when he transferred all our money into his personal account, and that account got frozen for fraud. The pending hotel charges bounced. At exactly 3 p.m., Nathan and Melissa arrived at the hotel, dressed for a vacation they could no longer afford. I wish I could have seen his face when the receptionist politely told him, "I'm sorry, sir, but your payment was declined. And unfortunately, we've had to release your reservation." Melissa must have been thrilled, because half an hour later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I already knew who it was. I answered, keeping my voice light. "Hello?" A second of silence. Then, not Nathan, but Melissa. Her voice was tight with frustration. "Chrissy, hey, look, I know things are weird between us, but..." I didn't let her finish. "Melissa, how's that upgrade treating you?" Silence. Then a sharp breath through her nose. I just need to know if there's something we can do to fix this. Nathan said you froze his account." I laughed. "Nathan said that, did he? And did he also mention how he stole money that wasn't his? Or how he left me on my birthday like an absolute coward?" Melissa exhaled sharply. "Look, I didn't know any of that, okay? I just thought..." I cut her off again. "You just thought he was an innocent, misunderstood guy who needed saving. Let me guess. He told you I was cold? Controlling? That I didn't support his dreams?" The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. Melissa was finally realizing she had been played. Too little, too late. While Nathan was scrambling to figure out how to pay for a hotel he couldn't afford, the internet was having a field day. Because Nathan, being the overconfident, social media-obsessed idiot that he was, had posted about his new life way too soon. And people noticed. The comments started rolling in. "Damn, bro flexed too early, Elmo. Imagine leaving your girl for an upgrade just to go broke in 24 hours. Nah, karma came with express delivery on this one. Even people who didn't know me personally were tearing him apart. And then it happened. The moment I had been waiting for. His boss saw it. At 4:45 p.m., my phone vibrated again. "Nathan." I picked up this time just to hear him sweat. "Chrissy, you need to stop this." He started immediately, his voice low, controlled, like he was trying to sound calm but was failing. I smiled. "Stop what, Nathan?" "You know exactly what. My boss called me today." "Oh?" I feigned surprise. "And why would he do that?" Nathan let out a bitter laugh. "Because apparently some people at work saw my Instagram post. And now HR is involved." That's right. His company had a strict non-fraternization policy. And Nathan? Nathan had been dating a subordinate. Melissa wasn't just a random girl. She was a junior staff member at his firm. And now, corporate had questions. Nathan thought he was calling to scare me into backing off. He still didn't understand how completely he had already lost. So I decided to spell it out for him. "Nathan, let's get something straight. I didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself. You stole our money, you played yourself. You lost control the moment you underestimated me." His breathing sharpened. "I swear to God, Chrissy." "No, Nathan. You don't swear to God. You swear to yourself that next time you won't be so stupid. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans. Enjoy your better life, if you can still afford it." And with that, I hung up. His calls kept coming. I never answered. Nathan was losing control. Everything he had so confidently taken for himself was slipping through his fingers like sand. No money, no hotel, no car, no apartment. And now, no job security either. But Nathan? He wasn't the type to go down quietly. No, he was the kind of guy who would set himself on fire just to feel like he was still in control. Which meant the next thing he did was the dumbest move of all. At 9 a.m. the next morning, I woke up to a knock at my door. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. Through the peephole, I saw a uniform. "Chrissy Walker?" the officer asked as I opened the door. I kept my face calm. "Yes, that's me. Is there a problem?" "We received a report about stolen property. Your ex-boyfriend, Nathan Carter, claims that you've unlawfully kept items that belong to him." I almost laughed out loud. "Did he now?" "He specifically mentioned some designer watches, a laptop, and a few suits." I stepped aside, gesturing to the hallway where Nathan's trash-bagged belongings still sat. "Everything he left behind is right there, untouched. He's welcome to take it, if he actually comes to get it himself." The officer glanced at the bags. "So, you haven't prevented him from accessing his property?" "Nope, but I have prevented him from accessing my apartment, my money, and my life. Is that a crime?" The officer smirked. "Not at all, ma'am. Sounds like a civil matter, not a criminal one. We'll be closing this complaint." And just like that, Nathan's pathetic attempt to intimidate me through law enforcement failed. Strike one. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. A call from a familiar number. Melissa. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. "Hello?" I answered, keeping my tone light. "Chrissy, I need to know the truth." Melissa's voice came through, tight with frustration. "How much of this did you plan?" "Plan?" I repeated, feigning confusion. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Melissa?" "Oh, don't play dumb. Nathan's broke, his job is on the line, his accounts are frozen, and now he's crashing at my place like some homeless ex-frat boy. This isn't just bad luck. You did something." I smiled, swirling my coffee. "Melissa, let me ask you something. Did Nathan ever tell you why he and I shared that bank account?" Silence. "Did he ever mention whose name is on the apartment lease? Or how he's been living off my credit cards for months?" More silence. Then, softly, almost bitterly, "No. He said you owed him that money, that you were controlling, that you'd never let him have any independence." I let out a short laugh. "So he convinced you that stealing from me was just him taking back control?" Classic. Melissa exhaled sharply. God, I was such an idiot. I didn't argue. Because, yeah, she kinda was. The final nail in Nathan's coffin came 3 days later. His company officially fired him. Not just because of the workplace relationship scandal, though that was bad enough, but because HR had reviewed his expense reports. Turns out, Nathan had been reimbursing himself for fake business dinners. He'd even expensed hotel stays, ones that I hadn't even discovered yet. His arrogance wasn't just personal. It was professional suicide. And now? Now Nathan was truly left with nothing. The very last time Nathan ever contacted me was 1 week later. His name popped up on my screen, but instead of rejecting it, I answered. I wanted to hear it. "Chrissy?" He started, his voice hollow. "You in?" I didn't say anything. I let the words hang between us. Nathan sighed. I don't get it. You didn't even try to get back at me. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You just let everything collapse around me." I took a deep breath, then finally answered. "Nathan, you did all of this to yourself. I didn't have to fight you. I just had to watch you destroy yourself." Silence. Then quietly, "I messed up, huh?" I smiled. "Yeah, you did." And then I hung up. I blocked his number, and I never looked back. Nathan was gone, blocked, erased, a ghost in my past. And yet, the ripples of his destruction were still spreading. Not that I cared. I had already moved on. But Nathan was learning the hard way that when you build your life on lies and arrogance, there's nothing left when it all crumbles. It didn't take long for word to spread about Nathan's downfall. His old friends, they turned on him faster than he could say upgrade. His coworkers, they had already seen the warning signs before he was fired. And his family? Well, that's where things got really interesting. Because one afternoon I got a text from an unexpected number. It was Nathan's mother, Linda. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. Linda. Chrissy, I know you don't owe me anything, but can we talk? I stared at the message for a moment. Then I typed back. Me. Depends. Are you about to blame me for your son's life falling apart? Her reply came instantly. Linda. Number. I need to know the truth. He won't tell me anything, and all I hear are pieces of the story from other people. That? That was interesting, because if his own mother wasn't defending him anymore, it meant Nathan's charm had officially run out. I agreed to meet her for coffee, not because I cared about Nathan, but because I wanted to see how much damage he had done to himself. When I walked into the cafe, Linda looked exhausted, like she had aged 5 years in just a few weeks. Thank you for meeting me, she said, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. I need to understand how this happened. I shrugged. Your son overplayed his hand. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he was smarter than me. Linda sighed. He told us you were controlling, that you tried to ruin him. I laughed, shaking my head. Tell me, Linda, what does controlling mean to Nathan? Because as far as I can tell, it means not letting him get away with everything he wants. She didn't argue. In fact, she looked guilty. We spoiled him, she admitted. We always bailed him out when he screwed up. His dad and I thought we were helping, but I see now that we just enabled him to believe he'd never face real consequences. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her words settle. Then she asked the real question. Chrissy, is there any way back for him? I thought about it. Then I said the only thing I knew to be true. Not until he realizes that he is the problem. And by the look on her face, I knew she already understood the answer. I heard bits and pieces over the next few months. Nathan moved back in with his parents. Apparently, they gave him conditions this time. No free money, no reckless spending, and definitely no more girlfriends using him as a stepping stone. Which was ironic, because Melissa had dumped him a week after our last conversation. Guess being the upgrade wasn't as fun when the money ran out. While Nathan was stuck rebuilding his life from scratch, I was thriving. I got a promotion. I traveled. I started a business on the side. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. No more waiting for someone to grow up. No more walking on eggshells. No more playing a game where the only way to win was to leave the table entirely. One day, nearly a year later, I got a message request on social media. I almost ignored it. But then I saw the name. Nathan. Curiosity got the best of me. I clicked. Nathan. Hey, I know it's been a long time. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I screwed up. I should have treated you better. I don't expect anything, but I wanted you to know that. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it, unanswered. Because some apologies? They come far too late. Nathan was nothing but a distant memory now. A lesson. A cautionary tale. A reminder of everything I would never tolerate again. While he was still trying to crawl his way out of the hole he dug for himself, my life was only getting better. And the best part? I didn't just survive his betrayal. I thrived because of it. A year had passed since that awful birthday. Since the laughable text message where Nathan declared he was upgrading his life at my expense. And yet, when I looked at where we both ended up, it was clear who had really won, because this was my reality now. My career had skyrocketed. That side business I started? It took off. Turns out, when you remove a financial leech from your life, your bank account thrives. I found love again. A real, mature, respectful relationship. Someone who didn't need to tear me down just to feel like a man. I traveled the world. While Nathan was stuck in his parents' basement, I was exploring cities, trying new foods, and finally living for myself. I didn't need revenge, because my success spoke for itself. But life has a funny way of wrapping up loose ends. It happened at a mutual friend's wedding. I almost didn't go, but something told me this was going to be worth it. And I was right, because the moment I walked in, I saw him. Nathan, slumped at a table in the corner, nursing a cheap beer, looking nothing like the man who once thought he was too good for me. His once carefully styled hair, unkempt, his expensive suits, now replaced by an ill-fitting dress shirt. His signature confidence? Gone. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Until our eyes met. And I saw it. Regret. The kind of regret that settles deep in your bones when you realize you traded gold for tinfoil. I gave him a small, polite smile. Then I turned back to my date. The handsome, successful man sitting beside me, the one who actually respected me. And I let Nathan watch me move on. Later that night, he finally gathered the nerve to approach me. I saw him coming, but I pretended not to notice. Until he cleared his throat. "Chrissy." "Hey." I turned, giving him a polite, disinterested glance. "Nathan." He shifted awkwardly. "You look good?" I smirked. "I know." His lips pressed into a thin line. "I guess you heard about everything. My job, Melissa, all of it." I nodded. "Yep." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "Guess you're pretty happy about how things turned out, huh?" I tilted my head, considering my answer. Then I said, "No, Nathan. I don't think about you enough to be happy or unhappy about it." And that was the truth. His face fell. I'm sorry, Chrissy. For everything. I wish I could take it back." I sighed, swirling the champagne in my glass. "You don't get it, do you?" He frowned. "Get what?" I smiled. "I don't need your apology. I never did. Because the second you walked away, you set me free. And now?" I gestured to the beautiful life I had built. "I have everything I ever wanted. And you?" I let my gaze flicker over his worn-down appearance. "Well, you have exactly what you deserve." His jaw clenched, but he had nothing left to say. Because deep down, he knew I was right. As I walked away, I felt lighter than I ever had before. Nathan had been a part of my life once, but that's all he would ever be. A past mistake, a lesson learned. And the most ironic part? He once thought that leaving me would be his greatest success, but in reality, it was mine. Because I had won the only battle that ever mattered. The battle to live well, love better, and never settle for less again.
The knock came just as I was pouring my morning coffee. Sharp, insistent. The kind of knock that demanded attention, not patience. I wasn't expecting company. Not today. Not after the week I'd had. Setting my mug down, I wiped my hands on my robe and made my way to the door, exhaling slowly. I wasn't prepared for what I saw when I opened it. There she stood. Ashley, my husband's new girlfriend. The one he had left me for. The one he had flaunted in public while I had been left to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. She was grinning. I barely had time to process the sight of her before she spoke, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "You need to start packing, Sarah. We're moving in." She tilted her head, eyes gleaming with triumph, as she held up a folded piece of paper. "A deed? A contract?" I couldn't tell. "Mark didn't tell you?" She smirked. "This house is his now, so I'd start boxing up your things if I were you. We're taking over." A slow, creeping chill spread through my chest. But instead of anger or panic, I felt something else. Something colder. Something calmer. I let my lips curl into a smile, because I wasn't alone. Behind her, standing just out of her line of sight, was my lawyer. And I knew something she didn't. It had started months ago. Or maybe, if I was honest, years. Mark and I had been married for 12 years, and for most of that time, I had been the wife who held things together. the one who organized the finances, the one who made sure the mortgage was paid, the one who put in the effort when Mark started pulling away. I had ignored the signs at first, the late nights at work, the way his phone suddenly never left his hand, the whispered calls in the other room. But then, I saw them together. It was supposed to be a girls' night out, a break from the stress of a marriage I was desperately trying to hold on to. But fate had other plans. There they were, in the corner of the restaurant, his hand resting on hers, laughing like I had never seen him laugh in years. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I didn't confront him, not then. Instead, I went home and started planning. Because if Mark thought he could humiliate me, if he thought he could take what was mine and walk away unscathed, he was wrong. Ashley's smile grew wider as she mistook my silence for shock. "I know this is hard for you, Sarah," she said, feigning sympathy as she tucked the papers under her arm. "But Mark and I are in love. It's time for you to move on." She placed a manicured hand on the doorframe as if she already owned it, as if she had already won. I almost laughed, but instead, I took a slow step back and gestured for her to come inside. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. She wasn't expecting that. She stepped in cautiously, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors I had chosen, the house I had built, the walls that held years of my life, memories, struggles, victories. Behind her, my lawyer followed, silent and composed. I closed the door. Then, I turned to face her. "Ashley," I said smoothly, taking my time, "there's something you should know." Her smirk faltered. My lawyer stepped forward, finally making his presence known. And then, the real game began. Ashley's smirk faded as my lawyer took a step forward, his presence finally sinking in. The confidence she had waltzed in with, the arrogance of someone who thought she had already won, was starting to crack. What is this?" she asked, her voice not quite as steady now. I let out a breath, slow and measured, before speaking. "You seem so sure of yourself, Ashley," I said, tilting my head, watching her. "Like you think you already own this house. Like you think you and Mark have outsmarted me." Her fingers tightened around the papers she was holding, her posture shifting slightly. She was starting to realize something was off, but she wasn't quite ready to let go of her smug confidence. "Mark transferred ownership to himself," she snapped, holding up the document. "He said you didn't have a choice. This house is his now. We checked." I smiled again. "Did you?" I glanced at my lawyer, who had remained quiet this whole time, calmly flipping through his folder. He adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, addressing me formally, ignoring Ashley completely. "Would you like to explain, or shall I?" I turned back to Ashley, taking in the way her confidence was finally beginning to waver. "Go ahead," I said. "I think she should hear it from a professional." My lawyer cleared his throat and looked at Ashley, who was gripping the papers now, like they were a lifeline. "You see, Miss Ashley, is it?" He didn't wait for her answer. The house wasn't Mark's to give away. Silence. Ashley blinked. "What?" my lawyer continued, his tone patient, almost amused. "This house," he gestured around us, "was never in Mark's name. Not before, not now. And certainly not in the divorce proceedings." Ashley's face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly, shaking her head. "That's not true," she scoffed. "Mark told me—" "Mark lied," I cut in. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I turned and walked to the side table near the entrance, picking up a very different set of papers. The real documents. I held them up between my fingers. "This house was mine before I even met Mark," I said, my voice calm, firm. "It was left to me in my grandmother's will. I never added Mark to the deed, no matter how many times he asked. He had no legal claim to it during our marriage, and he certainly doesn't have one now." Ashley's lips parted, but she still said nothing. I took a step closer. Whatever paperwork he gave you, whatever promises he made, it's worthless. The silence between us stretched for a long moment, and then the realization hit her. I saw it in her face, the way her smugness turned to confusion, then doubt, and finally, panic. Mark had always underestimated me. I remembered the way he used to laugh when I insisted on keeping certain things separate. "Why does it matter?" he would say. "We're married. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine." Except, in his mind, that had never been true. What was mine was his, and what was his was only his. I had seen it early on, the way he'd casually take money from our joint account, but hesitate when it came to sharing anything of his. I had ignored it then. I told myself that marriage was about trust, about compromise. I had trusted him, and he had bet on me being too naive, too emotionally wrecked by his betrayal to fight back. But what he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I had been fighting back since the day I saw him with her. Ashley took a shaky breath and squared her shoulders. "Mark said the house was his," she repeated, but this time it sounded more like she was trying to convince herself. He said he worked it out with the lawyers." My lawyer sighed, closing his folder. "He worked nothing out," he said bluntly. "What he did was attempt to file fraudulent paperwork, which I assume is what you're holding right now." Ashley's grip on the papers loosened slightly. I folded my arms and waited, letting the silence do the rest of the work. "And then?" she snapped. "That bastard," she muttered under her breath, her voice shaking with anger. I raised an eyebrow. "Is something wrong, Ashley?" She turned toward me so fast I almost laughed. "He told me this was his house. He said he was throwing you out. He said we could move in and start over." I tilted my head. "And you believed him?" Her eyes flashed, but she didn't answer. I could see the wheels turning in her head. She had just realized something. If Mark had lied about this, what else had he lied about? She turned to my lawyer. "So you're saying, legally, he has nothing?" My lawyer adjusted his tie. "That's exactly what I'm saying." Ashley inhaled sharply, her hand tightening around her phone. She was calculating, deciding her next move. I already knew what she was going to do. She was going to call Mark. She was going to demand answers. She was going to realize, far too late, that she had hitched her future to a sinking ship. I let the corner of my mouth twitch up in amusement. She thought she was walking into a victory. Instead, she was walking into a lesson, one that Mark had learned the hard way. Ashley's hands were shaking as she gripped her phone, her manicured nails tapping furiously against the screen. I watched with mild amusement as she scrolled through her contacts, her breath coming in short, angry bursts. She was panicking. The shift in her demeanor was almost comical. Just minutes ago, she had stood in my doorway, victorious, certain that she was moving into my house. Now she was scrambling, desperate to understand just how badly she had been played. I leaned against the kitchen counter, watching the inevitable unfold. She hit dial. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then, Mark answered. "Hey, babe." Mark's voice rang through the speaker, confident, cocky. Completely unaware of the storm brewing on the other end. Ashley didn't waste a second. "You lying piece of garbage!" she shrieked, her voice rising with every word. "You told me the house was yours, that we were moving in, that you threw Sarah out." Silence. I could practically hear Mark blinking in confusion on the other end. What?" Ashley spun toward me, eyes blazing. "Tell him." I smirked and took a slow sip of my coffee before setting the mug down. "Hey, Mark," I said smoothly. "Interesting day we're having, huh?" There was another pause. Longer this time. Then his voice returned. But it wasn't as confident anymore. "What's going on?" Ashley gritted her teeth. "What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. I just showed up at Sarah's house, ready to move in like you told me, and guess what?" She turned back to me, eyes burning with fury. "Sarah still owns the house." I could almost hear Mark's stomach drop through the phone. That's That's not possible, he stammered. I I filed the paperwork. Ashley cut him off. You filed nothing. You lied to me. You said we'd be starting fresh. You said you took care of everything. Mark's breathing grew heavier. He was realizing, far too late, that his brilliant plan had just fallen apart, and I was enjoying every second of it. You don't understand, Mark said quickly. I was going to fix it, Ashley scoffed. Fix it? You told me we had nothing to worry about. You told me you got everything in the divorce. I raised an eyebrow at that. Everything? Oh, Mark, you poor delusional man. I crossed my arms and decided to help him out. Mark, you didn't get the house. You didn't get the business. You didn't even get the joint account you tried to drain. The only thing you got was your car. Ashley turned back to the phone. And that car is what? A 10-year-old sedan? Mark was silent. Ashley let out a bitter laugh. Oh my God, you really have nothing. I watched her expression shift, something dangerous flickering in her eyes. She was starting to realize that Mark wasn't the prize she thought he was. Ashley inhaled sharply, pacing the room, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. I left everything for you, Mark, she hissed, voice shaking. I believed in you. I trusted you. Mark was still scrambling, still trying to control the situation. Baby, listen! Don't you dare baby me! She snapped. You told me we'd be living in a beautiful house. You told me we'd be set for life. And now you're telling me you have nothing? That we have nothing? She was unraveling fast, and I wasn't about to stop her. I walked over to the counter and leaned against it, watching the meltdown like a spectator at a particularly entertaining play. Mark's voice grew more desperate. Ashley, come on! We're in this together. Ashley let out a sharp, humorless laugh. No, Mark. You dragged me into this mess. I didn't sign up to be broke and homeless with you. She suddenly turned to me, her eyes wild. You planned this, she accused. You wanted me to find out like this. I shrugged. I didn't force you to show up at my house uninvited, Ashley. That was all you. Her lips parted, then snapped shut. She had no comeback for that. The reality of the situation was sinking in. Mark had used her, played her just like he had tried to play me. And now, she was paying the price for believing his lies. Ashley turned back to the phone, her entire body trembling with rage. I should have known, she seethed. You didn't love me. You just needed someone stupid enough to go along with your little fantasy. Mark's voice was full of panic now. Ashley, please. Click. She hung up. And then, she turned to me, her face a mixture of humiliation, rage, and something else. Something I knew all too well, regret. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, Ashley did the one thing I never expected. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. I can't believe I fell for him, I shrugged. It happens. She exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over her face. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and walked out. I watched her leave, wondering what would become of her now. Would she run back to Mark? Try to salvage what little dignity she had left? Or would she do the smart thing, cut her losses and walk away for good? Either way, it didn't matter to me, because the one thing I knew for sure was this. Mark had lost, and for the first time in a long time, I had won. Ashley's footsteps echoed down my driveway as she stormed away, phone clutched in her shaking hand. She had come here thinking she was stepping into her new life. Instead, she had walked straight into a humiliating reality check. I didn't call after her. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had made her choices. Now she had to live with them. I turned back to my lawyer, who was still calmly flipping through his notes, as if we hadn't just watched a woman's entire world collapse in real time. Well, he said, finally looking up, that was entertaining. I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. She thought she won, I murmured. She really thought she had everything figured out. My lawyer smirked. That's what happens when people believe the wrong person. And with that, I closed the door, locking out the past for good. I barely had time to take a sip of my now cold coffee before my phone buzzed. Mark. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. A part of me wanted to ignore him, to let him stew in his mess, but another part of me wanted to hear the desperation in his voice. Curiosity won. I picked up, keeping my voice steady. "What do you want, Mark?" His breathing was uneven, laced with frustration and panic. "Sarah, whatever you told Ashley, you need to fix it. She just called me screaming, saying I ruined her life. You made me look like an idiot." I smirked, swirling my coffee with a spoon. "Mark, you did that all on your own." Silence. Then, his tone shifted. "Listen, let's talk. We don't have to fight like this. We were married for 12 years, Sarah. You can't just throw me away like I'm nothing." I almost laughed at the pure hypocrisy. "Oh, but you could throw me away?" I asked, my voice cold now. "You could walk out, drain our accounts, move on with your younger upgrade, and expect me to just accept it." "That's different," he snapped. I made mistakes, okay? But I was hurt too. We weren't happy." I let his words settle in the air for a moment. Then I asked, "Are you happy now, Mark?" More silence. I already knew the answer. As much as I wanted to hang up and never hear his voice again, I had one more thing to say. "By the way, Mark," I said, keeping my tone light, "I got a call from my lawyer this morning." I heard him swallow. "And?" "Your petition to revisit the divorce settlement?" I paused, letting it sink in. The judge dismissed it. Again. His frustration turned to outright rage. "This isn't fair, Sarah. You set me up. You planned this whole thing behind my back." I couldn't help but smile. "No, Mark," I said calmly. "I just paid attention." And with that, I hung up. I expected that to be the last of my interactions with Mark. I was wrong. 2 days later, Ashley was back at my doorstep. Only this time, there was no smug grin, no condescending tone. She looked defeated. Her usually perfect makeup was smudged. Her blonde hair, which had always been styled to perfection, was messy, like she hadn't had the energy to fix it. I folded my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Ashley," I greeted, keeping my voice neutral. "What do you want?" She hesitated, shifting her weight. She looked down, then back up at me, biting her lip. And then, she did something I never expected. She apologized. "I was stupid," she said, her voice cracking. "I believed him. He told me you were cold, controlling, that you didn't support him. I thought—" She shook her head, laughing bitterly. "I thought I was different, that he wouldn't do to me what he did to you." I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "But you were right," she whispered. "Everything you said. He used me. He took my money, maxed out my credit cards. And when I asked him to help with rent—" Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "He told me I was too much to handle, that I was holding him back." And just like that, Ashley had become me. I exhaled, studying her carefully. "So what now?" I asked. "You running back to him?" She laughed again, shaking her head. "I'm done. She hesitated. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I watched her for a long moment. I wasn't sure if I forgave her, but I did understand her, because I had been exactly where she was standing now. I nodded, stepping back. "Good luck, Ashley." She gave me a small, sad smile. And then, she walked away. That night, I sat in my living room, with a glass of wine, reflecting on everything that had happened. I had thought revenge would feel different, that when Mark finally hit rock bottom, I'd feel a rush of victory. But the truth? I didn't feel anything for him anymore. I had won because I had moved on, because I had built something of my own. And Mark? He was still stuck in the same cycle of self-destruction. That wasn't my problem anymore. My lawyer had sent me one final update. Mark had applied for a new credit card. He was denied. He tried to get a loan. He was denied. He was drowning. And for once, I wasn't going to save him. I lifted my glass to no one in particular and whispered, "Good luck, Mark." And just like that, I closed the chapter on him forever. The morning was crisp and quiet, as I stepped into my boutique, the little shop that Mark had once mocked. The bell above the door chimed softly, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. No more legal battles, no more phone calls from my ex, no more shadows of the past looming over me. I had won. Not in the way Mark had feared, not with shouting or bitter revenge, but by simply living well. I had outgrown him, and nothing felt better than knowing that. I hadn't heard from Mark in weeks. After our last conversation, the one where he begged me to fix things for him, I assumed he had finally given up. But then, this morning, I saw it. A message from an unknown number. I knew exactly who it was before I even opened it. Mark. Sarah, I messed up. I know you probably hate me, but I need help. I lost my job, and I have nowhere to go. Can we just talk, please? I stared at the words on my screen, waiting for the anger to come, the resentment, the urge to throw the phone across the room and scream about how unfair it was, that even now, after everything, he still thought he could use me. But I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. I deleted the message. And that was it. No more Mark, no more past. Just my future. A week later, Ashley came into my boutique. She hesitated near the entrance, looking nervous, uncertain if she should even be here. I folded my arms and waited. She took a deep breath, then walked toward the counter. I got a job. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? She nodded. Marketing. It's not much, but it's mine. For the first time, Ashley didn't look like the smug, self-assured woman who had stood at my door weeks ago. She looked real, humbled, changed. I gave her a slow nod. Good for you. She let out a shaky laugh. Honestly, I don't know how you put up with him for so long. I smirked. I don't either. She hesitated again. I know I don't deserve it, but do you think we could be friends? I thought about it, about everything she had done, everything she had learned, everything I had learned, and then I gave her a small smile. Not friends, but maybe one day. That was enough for her. She nodded, bought a scarf from my boutique, and walked out the door, starting fresh, just like I had. It was a year later when I saw him again, at a gas station, of all places. I had pulled in to fill up my car when I spotted him across the lot, standing by a rusted sedan that was barely holding together. He looked different, thinner, tired, a little lost. For a moment, our eyes met. And in that brief second, I knew exactly what he was thinking. She got everything, and I have nothing. But what Mark never understood was that I didn't win because I took things from him. I won because I rebuilt myself, because I refused to let him take my future the way he had tried to take my past. I gave him a small nod, nothing more. And then I drove away. That was the last time I ever saw Mark. Years later, my boutique expanded into 3 more locations. I had new friends, new adventures. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back. I kept a framed quote in my office, right above my desk. One simple reminder of everything I had survived. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's moving on. And that's exactly what I did.